for thoughtful decisive. They aren't too strong, but take care of the payload.
I can't hear you. Need to keep it safe.
To get warmed up.
So it's ready to move out?
Not quite yet.
I should have known. Team, get ready for another wave of attacks.
Setting out the welcome mat.
On the ledge over there.
Claudia? What was that sound?
Seems like we hit another little snag.
Define little snag.
Forget about it. Defend the payload. It just needs a little more time. It's going to work. Trust me.
Watch the people off the payload.
Alright, so with the link to this stream finally shelled out to all the appropriate medias to get people aware that I am live right now, we are officially on air right now. But yes, hello everybody, it is the Dark Conservatarian, and I am here with another Strike Force news stream, and just a little bit of an announcement. I plan on doing these live streams a little bit more often than what I have been doing them in very recent history. I'm going to try to get out the schedule that I'm going to have these done every Tuesday evening and Sunday afternoon. So that's what I'm trying to do right now. I'm going to try to do my best to keep on with that schedule. And with today's live stream, I was kind of a little bit scatterbrained. I did not know exactly what I wanted to do. Did not remember exactly what I wanted to read, because originally I just remembered that I wanted to do somewhat of a fact checking of some of the claims that were done in the last presidential debate, but I completely forgot about that, so I did not do pre-reading on those. And I did some pre-reading on mail-in ballot voting and voter fraud in general, and I'm going to be doing a later episode of Strike Force News, likely on Sunday, talking about mail-in voter fraud, or just voter fraud in general, and talking about a little bit about the freaking fact-checking of the presidential debate as well. And right now, because it's so late, I am going to have no co-hosts on, so it's going to be just by myself. And so far in the chat, we have, as I greet everybody, first of all, Invisible Hand, hello, and no one, hello. And no one says my brother from another mother. Well, thanks, no one, for the comment right there. Yes, we are all brothers of liberty on this channel. That's what I like to think of all as. And sisters of liberty, as well as JC Armitage arrives in the live chat. Hello, how are you doing, JC? Invisible Hand says, I would probably agree with Cruz on this matter. If Hillary Clinton's 30,000 deleted emails weren't enough to tank her campaign, Hunter Biden's laptop won't damage Biden's campaign that much as I'd like to like it to tank his campaign. Brethren of Liberty, says Invisible Hand. Yeah, the much shorter way of putting it. But yes, as Invisible Hand sort of iterated in just a simple statement right there, he doubts that this is going to, like I doubt that this is going to have much sway in the voter turnout in the election of 2020, the presidential election more specifically. Now, Ted Cruz, he says, won't swing a single voter, and that is a little bit hyperbolic. I mean, it's likely that there are going to be some minds that are going to be changed about whether or not they want to vote for Biden. Just a few, just a handful of them, but not enough to have a full-on sway in the election, particularly to give like a whole handful of swing states to Trump that would otherwise not be swing states. And this is coming from the opinion of somebody who is on the right, this being Ted Cruz. And yes, I pre-read this article, at least the next 3 articles I have not pre-read. But I pre-read this article. It is in the description box if y'all want to read it yourself. But this is coming from pretty much a guy who is on the right, a hard right-winger, that being Ted Cruz. And also the same opinion is also espoused by PSA Sitch, which I know that he kind of is voting for Biden, so he might have a little bit of a bias, but he had pretty much the same opinion, and I think he put it this way: do you really seriously think that anybody is going to cease to vote for Joe Biden over what Hunter Biden has done? So basically he was implying that it was essentially kind of a guilt by association. And really, if I was to be intellectually honest myself, I mean, I have kind of called into question all the stuff that people like to hold over Trump's head over in 2016 and 2017 as far as what his cabinet picks were. You know, people putting Michael Flynn on trial and various other people that Trump has selected part of his cabinet and whatnot. I want to hold them on trial for certain crimes. Like, I do not know the full extent of it, all these crimes that they want to allege. But nonetheless, I've gone with the mindset that if those were true, that if whatever associates of Trump turned out to be doing some criminal negligence type stuff, then that would, and you're going to hold that over Trump, then it would be like a big old guilt by association, especially if you're going to be using that as to say that Trump shouldn't be president and probably should be impeached and whatnot. So I was thinking back then that guilt by association is not really a good metric to be kicking Trump out. And fast forward now to 2020, we're in the middle of the election season, and people like to hold Hunter Biden's association with Hunter Biden and his crimes in association with Joe Biden when it's not known for absolute certain of how much that Joe Biden might be involved in this. I mean, I haven't read much into it, and this article gives some vague details of what is going on with Hunter, but it doesn't go that deep into it. But still, like, brings forth the logic, or more specifically, Ted Cruz does, as reported by the writer, that it's kind of skeptical that it'll have a huge sway in the election. And yeah, just like as Invisible Hand said there in the chat, by extension, yeah, it's the same thing as the 2016 election when it came to Hillary Clinton. So yeah. So that's about it on that. I just wanted to get my very quick statement on that. But here is a little article that I tried to read in a past episode of Strike Force News, but I did not end up finishing because I had such a crappy connection on that one live stream to where that my streaming service decided to just kill it entirely. They were all like, "Oh god, DarkCon, you're such cringe. Just end the stream already, or else we're gonna end it for you." And what do you know? YouTube decided to end it for me. And by the way, in case any of y'all are wondering, yes, I am wearing a Chiefs jersey because screw it, why not? Anyway, so I guess kind of starting over from the start of this article, read what I meant to read a couple episodes ago. Why Obama worries about progressives under a prospective Biden presidency. So this is like coming from, hello Cat Chat there in the chat. By the way, Cat Chat, did you see my most recent video that I had uploaded on my YouTube channel? She says that she's at work. Oh, well, kudos to you. I am a full 9-to-5 worker myself. And, yeah, I guess since that kind of reminds me of something. I haven't had a whole lot of time to look into the Hunter Biden controversy, and I probably won't have a lot of time myself to look into the Hunter Biden controversy in between my 9-to-5 job and other social gatherings and stuff busy in my life, on top of the election being so close. So that's my excuse for not looking too much into the Hunter Biden controversy. And because of how people are thinking that's going to have little sway over the election, it seems kind of fruitless anyway to try to research it at this point. I saw some of it, says Cat Chat. Okay. Well, watch it to the full end, Cat Chat, because I got announcing you as a patron at the end of that video. But anyway, moving on to the second article. So this is coming from the guy who formerly worked very close with Biden. So obviously Obama's opinion on a possible Joe Biden presidency would hold heavy as to how effective or damaging that Biden's tenure might be if he was to get elected. The divergence between some prominent Democrats and the party's leftmost wing would probably fall away with a Trump victory. Unite to fight the common enemy and all that. But if Joe Biden wins next month, then there's a potential for further inter-party division. That's what Barack Obama seems to fear. You know, this kind of reminds me. If Biden does win, there is a likability that it could further divide the left, even more so than Trump's victory divided the right. Because although we do have a bit of the benefit of hindsight right here to look at Trump and what happened to the right, because the Never Trumper movement did not last all that long or all that effective, if I'm to be quite honest. This is me speaking as a former Never Trumper. I made the Never Trumper pledge back in 2016. This election cycle, I'm not proposing myself as a Never Trumper. It is a high possibility that I will likely vote for Trump at this point myself. But nonetheless, we have the benefit of hindsight to look at Trump and see how that the right pretty much reunited with itself when it as soon as Trump had some time being as president and kind of show a little bit more of his stripes on how conservative or not that he is. I still think that he is highly not conservative in a whole lot of ways, gun rights being the prime example. He ain't being very effective on abortion, and of course he's in no ways a fiscal conservative at all. As one of my previous episodes I got talking about his spending habits, for example. But all the same, he still proved himself to be conservative in some aspects, whereas originally in the general election, we had absolutely no evidence to suspect that he had any conservative attributes at all. So because of that, the right had reunited, pretty much being the right had reunited in spite of a Trump victory. So it could go either way if Biden was to win, honestly. Either Biden wins and the left divides itself even more than it has in the 2016 election, or even in parts of the 2020 Democratic primaries, or it could reunite. The left could, in spite of a possible Biden victory. President Trump is a populist, says no one. Yeah, I know. I say that President Trump is overall a right-wing populist, obviously. To call him a conservative would be an inaccuracy, but I was just saying that he is conservative in a few aspects, whereas originally there was no evidence to any kind of conservative reputation at all, worthy of fruit of the man. Catchet says, I never ate an apple on the billiard. Where did I put my broom? Corn Pop Colonel showed me where the pool filter is. Who can take me to the zoo? Freedom Tunes, why won't you debate me? This is Cat Chat. What the heck? Invisible Hand says, the last bastion of Never Trumpers is the Lincoln Project. I guess so. I haven't been keeping that close of tabs on who the Never Trumpers were. But anyway, continuing on with the actual article itself. Obama recently encouraged progressives not to push too hard, or at least not to treat their demands as zero-sum matters. The caution I always have for progressives is making sure that as you push for the most you could get, that at a certain point you say, all right, you know what, let's get this done, and then let's move on to fight another day. He said on Pod Save America, whose hosts all worked in the Obama administration. Yeah, I've vaguely heard of Pod Save America. They're pretty much a leftist talk show group. I think My Two Cents has responded to Pod Save America. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure that that's a little factoid. Those on the receiving end of Obama's exhortation would include the likes of Representatives Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. Yeah, as it's shown that her Green New Deal kind of flopped. She's been pushing hard for that at points, and it absolutely flopped and failed in the House because I guess the Democrats were not radical enough to want to go gung-ho on that. They were thought, nope, it's too soon, Cortez. It's too slow. It's too soon. Slow your jam. 1 second. And Pramila... Okay, let me start that over. Those on the receiving end of Obama's exhortation would include the likes of Representatives Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez and Pramila Jayapal. Indeed, the whole Bernie Sanders, Medicare for All, and Green New Deal coalition. Dang, my ear was feeling clogged for a second there. Who have explicitly said they plan to push Biden and ultimately expect him to be pushed to the left. The inertia really is behind those House Progressive Caucus types, and they should be encouraged. Biden has moved toward them, though he has rebuked the socialist moniker that so many fervently embrace. I beat the socialists, Biden has said, and he challenged their entire ethos by doing that. On policy, the question is where else Biden will go. Obama knows as well as anyone just how far Biden is willing to move and anticipates some ongoing tension. Healthcare and climate are areas where Biden will be challenged. Though the most pressing question as of now is the Supreme Court. Excuse me. I mean, that's a funny thing to be raising up there. I mean, is there much divide on the left as far as the Supreme Court nomination goes? I don't know. I mean, I do not know if Biden has like put out a list of possible nominees that he would put into the Supreme Court as soon as the next SCOTUS judge retires and so forth. But as far as I know, I have not seen any evidence, not even any implications at all, that the left has disagreements with itself on who should be SCOTUS judge. I'm not even so sure that far-left socialists have that much opinion on the SCOTUS. I would definitely do Amy Coney Barrett, says no one. I do not know if she would be flattered or if she would be offended if she heard me read that chat comment there, no one. Just saying. Immediately after Ruth Bader Ginsburg's death, Biden said, "We need to de-escalate, not escalate." Yet, since then, he has been extremely mushy on the question of court packing. Okay, yeah, I mean, if he's kind of evaded the question of court packing, it doesn't seem that his whole de-escalation line means worth a jack diddly squat at all. At his Thursday ABC town hall, Biden suggested that he is actively entertaining it, even as he flirts with it. Biden is not quite where Senator Ed Markey, I almost read Malarkey, Senator Ed Markey is, at least not publicly. Perhaps that will change. I have a feeling, you know what, all of us on the right, libertarian, conservative, and otherwise, pretty much have a very stinking suspicion on what Biden's intent is as far as the Supreme Court goes. That he might just possibly pack the courts if he was to get elected. He did say he would let voters know his position before Election Day, but it's anyone's guess whether he'll honor that. In any case, it may all depend on how things play out. There are a number of variables. You know what? That kind of raises a bit of a question. Like, is there much of an opinion from the general populace as to whether or not they think that there should be more SCOTUS judges, on whether or not they think that any candidate at all should be packing the court and or nominating people to go over the 9-member number as far as SCOTUS judges go? As far as I know, there isn't much of an opinion on that, so I don't know. I mean, it would be interesting to know if there is much of a general consensus to know on that. In any case, blah, 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 blah. There are a number of variables that will determine where party leadership might decide to go, including who wins the congressional majorities and obviously who wins the White House. I have a feeling that the House of Representatives is going to stay Democratic, and I'm not even so confident that the Senate is going to stay in Republican control. Excuse me. In fact, I almost have a little bit of a suspicion, or that possibly the Senate will go, in fact, to the Dems. Like, that would be interesting. Like, for these first 2 years of Trump's second term, if he was likely to win, if he wins the presidential election, but he ultimately loses the Senate, and Trump is ultimately surrounded by both a Democrat-controlled Senate and House of Representatives. If that happens, then I have a feeling that Trump is going to buckle on a lot of principles. One of them being gun rights and the other being the minimum wage. Which, God save America if that happens. And obviously, honestly, in spite of what I will do as far as my vote goes, there's no doubt in my mind. I mean, I don't trust. This, in spite of who I'm going to vote for in the presidential election, no matter who it is, I don't trust Trump on those two issues, gun rights and minimum wage, and few other issues too, for that matter, but those are the two top ones. There's reason to believe that Democrats, and especially a Biden administration, would cast aside the court packing scheme. Really? What makes you suspect that? Developing and passing a court packing scheme would be all-consuming and would drown out anything else Biden would want to do. Would it really? I mean, I guess there is a possibility that it would expend too much political capital with the Democrats having to fight with a Republican-controlled Senate. That is, if Biden won the presidential election and Republicans still retained the Senate, at least. I mean, honestly, anything is up for grabs with the Senate, in my opinion. I think that Trump will likely win the presidency, but even then, there's still a slight possibility that Joe might ultimately win, in my honest opinion. But even that may depend on the outcome of the pending Supreme Court case on the Affordable Care Act. On the slim chance that the law gets thrown out, there would be more pressure to do something about the court. But if not, there would be less reason to bother with it in the short term. A whole lot can be done with Congress and the White House, both, but Biden will have to come all the way around on the abolition of the filibuster. He has entertained that too, but not gone all in. Whatever happens, groups like Demand Justice is the name of the group, I guess, won't simply step away from the court-packing platform if the party does so, nor from its criticisms of Democrats who retain reservations about the most controversial proposals. See its treatment of Senator Dianne Feinstein. The others won't simply give up on Medicare for All or the Green New Deal for the time being. The people to whom Obama spoke are not fond of taking what they can get. If Obama's thoughts are any indication, there will be things that they and other Democrats could get that Biden isn't willing to work for, and that will lead to a lot of unhappiness among the Democratic base. That's the end of the article. There seems to be a lot of assertion. It almost seems, as far as what the Washington Examiner was saying at this point, as far as Biden being divisive with his own party on the issues. So, I mean, there is reason enough to believe that Biden will not just go along with the more extreme wings of the Democratic Party as far as the leftward agenda goes. But all the same, is it really that believable that he wouldn't go with such an agenda? I don't really think so. Let me see here, get caught up in the chat before I move on to the next article. No one says it's criminal that you don't have over 100,000 subscribers. Thanks, no one. You really flatter me, you really do. But honestly, it's not that too surprising as to how I don't have over 100,000 subscribers. Because honestly, I have had a whole lot of connection issues with my streaming as far as that goes. And honestly, I'm not the absolute sharpest when it comes to my, what's the word I'm looking for? See, I'm doing it right now. I'm not the most sharpest in my articulation of the issues. Let me put it that way. So, there is that problem. I mean, I guess if I was to get 100,000 subscribers purely from my response videos, hey, that's cool. But first things first, I would like to first get 1,000 subscribers. Preferably before the end of the year, but that's kind of doubtful at this point. I'll get it before the end of the year. AOC sure wants to pack the court. JC Armitage says, oh, I don't doubt it. I don't doubt it, JC. That's funny because JC spells it with capital A, lowercase o, and uppercase C. So it almost seemed like for a second there that JC Armitage was saying age of consent rather than Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. Invisible Hand says they'll try and pack the court and then redefine court packing as placing judges who they don't like in vacant seats. Oh boy. Just like how they tried to redefine preference as an offensive term. No one says, I don't trust the Trump administration on those issues either. Exactly, no one. I mean, this is why honestly we need to retain Senate or Republican control in the Senate. Because even though Trump has been kind of unreliable on those issues, primarily when it comes to guns, the Republican Senate at least has been more reliable on gun rights. Like back in 2013, they pretty much snubbed Obama when he tried to get the 1993 assault weapons ban renewed back then. So, yeah. Man, 2013, that was 7 years ago. I feel like an old man speaking about that. But yeah, you get my point. Republican senators, even though as squishy as they are, at least have a little bit more reputation for gun rights than Trump does. And if we retained Republican control in the Senate, then that would at least hold Trump's feet to the fire if he was to get reelected for a second term. But if he wins and the Democrats control both the Senate and the House, there's a likelihood that Trump will just buckle to the Dems in Congress. As far as guns go. Invisible Hand says Webster literally changed its definition of sexual preference right after that Senate hearing. That's what I've been hearing, Invisible Hand. Indeed. So on to the issue that I secondary named this live stream after. As the title of the stream goes, Cruz doubts H. Biden will swing election and cities ready for election violence. And here it is right here, folks. So this is from Washington Examiner as well. This is a little bit longer than last article, so that's cool. Broken arrow. Cities and police ready for election violence. So let's dive into this. More than most law enforcement officials around the country, Anoka County, Minnesota, Sheriff James Stewart has been up close to the tensions gripping the country this year. His territory touches Minneapolis, where violence followed the death of George Floyd in May while in the custody of the city police. Not just May, but in large parts of June too. His deputies are bracing for protests targeting a new pipeline project, and now he has to get ready for the likelihood of election day violence. I think 2020 has really defined what law enforcement has to be prepared for and is willing to respond to. Although everybody is tired of the unrest, it's the reality of this year, he told Secrets. Yeah, exactly. I mean, the riots were not as bad as they have been right now throughout the summer of this year. But still, all the same, back in 2016, and I can't remember if it was election day or if it was inauguration day or even both of those days. There were riots that were happening over Trump winning the election and getting inaugurated as president. So it really isn't. I really wouldn't put it past it. I really wouldn't put past the populace to get highly pissed of the likelihood of a Trump re-election and want to start doing more riots. And that's the biggest reason why I select this article, y'all. The tragic reality is that we are prepared for any type of unrest situation on a much greater scale in 2020 than we have been in the past. Sad. The sad thing is we have to be. The good news is that we are prepared, said the sheriff, who is planning to increase surveillance of polling areas on election day. Exactly 1,600 miles away, Tampa, Florida, Mayor Jane Castor agreed that 2020 has rewritten rules, including preparing for the election. Also, the city's former police chief, she said that law enforcement is preparing for the worst, and that she hopes that President Trump or Democrat Joe Biden win big, a definitive win, or else there is the possibility of some type of violent reaction throughout the country. If they win within a small margin, is it really going to make the violence much bigger? Or I honestly don't think that it's going to matter on whether or not either of these two candidates win the presidential election by a small or big margin. I don't think it matters either way as to whether or not there will be violence happening throughout this country as soon as the day after election day. Let me put it that way. Still, the mayor isn't expecting violence. What? Oh god, you gotta be having your head in the sand if you're really not expecting violence. She said that election supervisors have worked out a strong election day plan, and the mayor has wooed poll volunteers to help the expected voter crunch, even including staff from the Tampa Bay Rays, the team representing the American League in the World Series. Team President Brian Ald, in discussing plans to help in the election with Castor on Facebook, said, "Nothing's more important. We put the Rays World Series right underneath the election coming up. Unlike ever before, cities big and small are being warned about the potential of protests and violence from both sides of the aisle." Indeed. Let's see. That's reading up the chat a little bit more. Cat Chat says that's dumb. Preferences are different to orientation. Okay. Jesse Armitage says broken arrow that sounds like an operation codename you'd find in a Tom Clancy novel. I think Broken Arrow was actually the name of a movie, as I was like googling up a proper picture to put in the thumbnail of this stream. But I digress. And yes, everyone should be as prepared for post-election riots, no matter who wins. Indeed. I have had myself a Glock 19 for the longest time, but now I have myself an AR from the very first time. So I am more ready than I can possibly be before, I guess. In my opinion, anyways. Cat Chat says, "Yay, more tantrums. Who are supposed to be the adults again?" Apparently not America, Cat Chat. Apparently not America. Invisible Hand says, "Wouldn't the violence be greater if either one wins in a landslide?" Possibly. I don't know if it would. I cannot make a firm observation on whether or not I think it would be greater if it was a landslide or if it was a marginal, or if it was a narrow marginal victory. Let's see. Continuing on, the U.S. Conference of Mayors has been urging members to prepare for a long period of protests if the election count takes extra days or weeks. And that's a high possibility that it will, as I am just reading up on all the mail-in ballot and all the voting news in general. And some shady stuff is possibly going to be in the works as far as the election, as far as the voting count goes with all the mail-in ballots and whatnot. I'm just going to leave it at that for right now. But you'll know more of my opinion when we go streaming on Sunday afternoon. The 2020 election is shaping up to be like no other in our nation's history. You know, that's kind of what they say about a lot of elections, but I think they might be right this time. Because I will say, I mean, PSA Sitch, he gave a little bit of an opinion himself that all the people, like PSA Sitch, he's kind of a doubter. I'm not as much of a doubter as he is, but still, he is a doubter that there will be civil war or anything like that. And maybe he has his head in the sand a little bit himself, but all the same, hearing out his opinion, he doubts that it'll be like civil war or anything like that, as he's like paraphrasing the opinions of other people, saying that, oh, we haven't seen violence in our country like this ever before, but then he goes talking about the civil rights era. as a main example, and even the actual Civil War and the build-up for it. So, but even then, even looking at the violence back then, I don't think the all the riots that happened in the civil rights era, that happened necessarily during an election year, much less over an election. I could be wrong, but I don't remember that being the case. Whereas this violence would be explicitly over an election. Yeah. Would explicitly be over presidential election. So it is, the 2020 election is shaping up to be like no other in our nation's history. Although it's kind of like 2016, except times 3. That's how tense it is. There is significant concern that we may see voter intimidation efforts and protests, some possibly violent, in the days leading up to November 3rd on that day and on the days following. It's said on a webpage dedicated to election security and safety. The National Sheriff's Association, meanwhile, is encouraging Americans to accept the election outcome. I will accept the election outcome, at least in the short term, me personally, no matter who wins. There is no place for violence in our electoral process, and anyone encouraging violence because an or the election fails to meet their personal beliefs makes their action nothing more than mob rule or worse, terrorism. For 244 years, we accepted the will of the people bending to violence or the threat is For 244 years, we accepted the will of the people. Bending to violence or the threat is contrary to everything this nation was founded upon, said Jonathan Thompson, NSA Executive Director and CEO. Stewart said his office has a 3-stage plan depending on the violence. The most severe is called Broken Arrow, where everybody is paged out. We roll out all available equipment and all days off are canceled. Stewart, who is on the executive board of the National Sheriff's Association, which is helping departments prepare for Election Day, added, across the nation, we've really been forced to relook at how to prepare ourselves for what could be. It's happening in small towns too. Culpeper County, Virginia, Sheriff Scott Jenkins said the rural areas officials have a plan to keep everybody safe. Still, like his fellow sheriff in urban Minneapolis, Jenkins told us, on election night, we will follow reporting and intelligence from many sources to prepare for what may come. But let me say this, we will deal swiftly and appropriately with unlawful activity from any individual or group, no matter where they place themselves on the political spectrum. No matter our disagreements, using violence to force another person to your own point of view is unacceptable. Indeed it is. This is why that I would say if a person is trying to force their will upon another via, some brand of authoritarianism, then I would say retaliation in that case would be necessary. Just to put that little caveat. I mean, deciding to riot over the mere election results themselves is unnecessary. But as soon as the tanks start rolling down the streets at Biden's order, that would be of when that retaliation would be necessary. I mean, hypothetically speaking, y'all, I'm not saying that immediately Joe Biden is going to declare martial law or anything like that. Do not take me out of context on that. Do not quote mind me. It's a lot to ask of the police. Everybody is just tired, said Stewart, adding, deputies and most of the public included. But he said his team will do what they've got to do. In Tampa, Castor is sticking with a glass half full approach to Election Day while readying for potential disaster. I always try to find the silver lining in every situation. And with the division we've seen here and across our nation, I just hope it brings individuals out to the polls and that we see everyone exercising their right to vote, she said. That's the end of the article. So, yeah, everybody keep yourself safe in that. Keep yourself safe out there when it comes to Election Day and around the time of Election Day. Please. I would hate to hear of any of my fans or subscribers at all suffering from violence because of, this election. I would hate to hear that. So keep yourself safe on that front. So, to get off of kind of a broken, or excuse me, not broken, my bad, a dark subject, we're going to go on to something that's a little bit more lighthearted, I guess, sort of bittersweet. And that this article says, these days finding a sense of community is a lot like prospecting for gold. So, this is not really important when it comes to politics at all. I just found this article because, honestly, if I was to give a bit of a full disclosure right here, folks, I mean, obviously, any of y'all that have watched my 5 years of YouTube video, my 5-year anniversary video, you would know that I've been kind of having a little bit of trouble with friends, honestly. Personal friends, anyways. And that just the mere title of this article has kind of struck a little bit of a chord with me. And so I thought just for sort of social commentary and psychology's sake, that maybe this article would be an interesting read on that front. But before I actually get to that, I'm going to catch up on the chat a bit. Invisible Hand says, wouldn't the violence be greater? Oh, wait, no, I already read that one. Cat Chat says, dunno, guess it depends if the rioters of 2016 were the minority. Yeah, I'd say so, Cat. Invisible Hand also says, you got it right, it's pronounced Culpepper. I gotcha. Cat Chat says, I'm a drive, and I'll continue listening in. Well, thanks, Cat Chat. I'm glad that I am your favorite talk show to listen to while driving and working. But anyway, moving on to the article here, though, as it is starting to get kind of late here in my town. These days, finding a sense of community is a lot like prospecting for gold. Wampum, Pennsylvania. Keith Raup, or Roop, however you pronounce that name, has a story to tell. The kind that beckons you to pull up a chair and set a spell while he... Excuse me. I feel like I need a mute button for whenever I go passing gas. Wampum, Pennsylvania. Keith Roop has a story to tell. The kind that beckons you to pull up a chair and set a spell while he tells it. It all begins with a crystal clear stream not far from his home in Lawrence County, a 14,000-year-old glacier that no one's really thought about for 14,000 years, and a young man with an old soul connecting with the land around him. Like many young people from around here, I've always been an outdoors person. Love everything about it. And like many young people, I've always been intrigued by the idea of finding a treasure, in particular, gold, Roop said. I'm just going to pronounce it like Roop, not Raup. Roop sounds better. You see, with gold, you really have to work hard to earn it. That's right, his newfound hobby is prospecting. Though Roop has found not just gold, but also an appreciation for how communities in common purpose forge new friends and experiences. Over 170 years ago, James W. Marshall found flecks of gold during an inspection of a tail-raised waterway of a primitive sawmill. He proclaimed, "Boys, I believe I have found a gold mine." Since then, the adventures and riches of finding that precious metal have beckoned men and women from across all socioeconomic backgrounds. That January 24th, 1848 moment spread as rapidly as possible for the time by telegraph. Overland state... Excuse me. Let me reread that. That January 24th, 1848 moment spread as rapidly as possible for the time by telegraph, overland stagecoach, pony express, and emigrant trains. God, being fucking dyslexic. It drew thousands of people, some adventurous, many desperate, to visit a vast, mysterious land recently ceded to the United States by Mexico. It was not the first gold rush in the country, though. That distinction lies due south of here in North Carolina and dates back to 1799, when a 12-year-old boy found a large gold nugget along a creek that ran through the family farm. The family used it as a doorstep for years, not understanding its value. The discovery eventually led to the Carolina Gold Rush and a 28-pound nugget found in the same creek. Roop found himself intrigued with the idea of prospecting when his buddy showed him a little vial with about half a gram of gold in it. He told me he had found it along on Neshannock Creek, and so I decided to do a little bit of surveying and look around for things myself, he said. And Neshannock is not my favorite spot, even though I can see it from my home. It's a sparkling tributary that runs from Mercer County and empties into the Shenango River in Newcastle, Pennsylvania. I thought I'd try to take my adventure a little bit off the grid, so we came here to the property my uncle owns to check out the creek that runs through it, he explained. For Roop, the adventure is not limited to finding gold. It has also been the wealth of information and education he has accumulated in researching minerals, land, and geology, not to mention the bonds of community he has formed over what he calls a hobby. It is a Thursday morning in October. The air is brisk with faint traces of a summer still evident in the air. The leaves have begun to turn, and Roop is leading a group of prospectors, most of them newbies, on an adventure of a lifetime. The first time I actually found it on my own, I was actually surprised, he said. I wasn't really expecting to find it, and then I started finding little pieces, like little grains of flour, and literally that's how small it can get. He explained his eureka moment. You can see it from the other minerals in the pan compared to the actual gold. The gold sticks out like a sore thumb, and just seeing that, I was just like, holy shit, there's actually gold here, and it's just been on ever since. Pennsylvania has long been known for its rich natural resources, including iron, coal, oil, and shale. Resources that have fueled and built this country for centuries. To a lesser extent, the state is also the home of rare gems and minerals such as pyrite, however you pronounce that, quartz, and garnet and gold. We can thank the Ice Age glaciers that brought gold and platinum here from what is now modern-day Canada, Roop explained. How much longer is the article? Not too much longer. The outing this Thursday has over a half a dozen people looking for the unmistakable flecks of yellow. They are all there for the fellowship, the adventure, and the gold, but also for the cowboy coffee and the food. It is Judd Stauber's first time prospecting. The suburban Pittsburgher found a video Roop posted on YouTube a while back on mining in western Pennsylvania and decided why not. I got in touch with these guys, and I never would have thought you could just sit down at a stream and pan for gold and get gold. It's just crazy. I mean, I've been at these streams since I was a kid, and I never ever thought there would be gold that you could actually get, the 47-year-old Allison Park native said. You see, Stauber's first bucket in the stream netted him gold, and he is pretty elated. Yeah, the first bucket. Yeah, I couldn't believe it, he said. He still hasn't shaken what he later describes as gold fever, although all the people admit their prospecting has no similarity to gold rushes of the past. As of this week's market, gold has an astounding value of about $1,900 per ounce, about $400 higher than what the average price hovered at before the pandemic. To date, Roop has not cashed in on any of the gold he has found. Roop is a throwback to a different era, when honing a multitude of talents made you invaluable to a multitude of trades. He sees his jack-of-all-trades approach to providing for himself and his family as an asset, not something holding him back. 1 second. Natshift 10,000 says, hey DarkCon, talking about Hunter Biden. You're a little bit late for that night shift. You'll have to rewatch this live stream from the beginning. As it was more like the first 10 minutes of this live stream that I had given my full thoughts about Hunter Biden. But I'm just gonna continue on with this article rather than reiterate my thoughts. Night shift, no offense. But again, if you wanna hear my full thoughts, go back to the beginning of this live stream when done. Right now, I'm just reading this little article that's talking about finding community, basically. My day job, I'm a telecommunicator. I work on the phone selling products, answering calls to help people when they call in to buy products, things of that nature. Telecommunications. But I've had multiple careers. I do a little bit of everything. The way I see it, the more you know, the more valuable you are. It's pretty cool, he said. He's also a throwback to our love of forming associations. He started the Western Pennsylvania Gold Prospecting Facebook group to test the waters to see if people were interested in the hobby. The private group started with just him. Then along came John Smith, and the two became best friends. It's now grown to over 200 members who drove as far as 3 hours to come and hang out with us and pan and find gold, Roop said. Thanks in large part to technology, cultural shifts, and the social isolation that technology can create, people for the past generation have lost that internal lust we once universally shared to form associations within our communities. We used to like each other's company a lot, especially over shared values or a common purpose. It made us better people, better neighbors, better parents, and better sons and daughters. What they are doing here recreates that sense of community these young people still yearn for. We all hang out, we have fun. Some parents have their kids come along, Roop said. I tell everybody to bring basic prospecting equipment as well as enough food and drink for themselves and be prepared to have a story to tell their kids and grandkids years from now, unlike the ones most of your friends will share with theirs. Yeah. End of that article. So yeah, nothing real serious or political right there. Just a little short and sweet little thing talking about community. And might I just give my small opinion about this? This is absolutely no offense to my subscriber base. Although, I think there is a point to be made that you do not gain the same sense of community with people who you interact with over the internet as compared to in person. Again, this is no offense to my subscriber base because I have somewhat found a bit of a community with my subscriber base and the people that, in more particular, that have joined my Discord server for us to chat and whatnot. I mean, those are all fun and uplifting times whenever fun times happen in my server and whatnot. But nonetheless, it still is not the same as interacting with people and having a fun time in person. And unfortunately, our modern society has likely lost that. And the easiest way, the most effective way for you to find a sense of community with people is not only just in person, but also if you find a common hobby with one another. And as you all know, I like to, or as you all might know anyways, I like sci-fi and I like comics, or at least drawing comics anyways. And I like drawing and story writing and just making a sort of a sci-fi story with that comic writing hobby. So maybe there is an argument to be made, that I should find more people of that sort of caliber for me to get a very, very true sense of community. Like all my friends and family, they are rather fascinated and intrigued with whenever I do go sharing my hobby with them. Whenever they catch me doing my comic writing hobby, they are rather fun and intrigued of it. A little bit more than my YouTube hobby, honestly. But at the same time, they don't do stuff like comic writing and or comic drawing and story writing themselves all that much. So, even though they're intrigued, it's not a real bouncing social communication or community in that regards. Invisible Hand says, that's about right, I'd say. It's not the same. Exactly. But yeah, I think that's about it for this live stream. I'm sorry, people, that this live stream has been kind of brief, but I've been kind of late getting to this live stream and getting it live and whatnot, as I was trying to pre-read some of the articles that I originally wanted to feature, but ultimately did not feature them. So I'm going to have to come back on Sunday afternoon, and rest assured, everybody, Sunday afternoon, I will have a much longer edition of Strikeforce News, presenting some information and talking about voter fraud and fact-checking a little bit of the last presidential debate that went on, and maybe I'll have some bonus, a little bit of extra content going on in that next episode as well. So, stay tuned for that. But until then, stay safe out there. It is a wild world. As this Broken Arrow article has shown, stay safe, and like I said, it would break my heart to hear if any of you, my subscribers, ended up getting hurt from the violence around this election. Arm yourself, protect yourself, secure yourself. And anyway, I guess that's about it. Y'all have a good night, and God bless you all.